Hello, my name is Nicholas James Vander Lane. Today is the 23rd day of the 12th month. This is March 11th, 2019. This video is being broadcasted from Eilat, Israel, which is outside the borders of Israel, but I believe that Solomon had a shipyard here. This is, I believe, possibly the land of Edom. This message is the message of the Ezekiel 33 Watchman, the sin of eating blood. Also in this video, I'm going to provide a biblical example on how to properly remove all blood from the flesh. Shema Yisrael. This video is for the Israelites, the state of Israel, Israelis, Jews, Jewish converts, all those who are inhabiting the waste places of the land of Israel, all the people of the world who are the children of Noah, Christians, and most lovingly to the believers and followers of Messiah Yeshua. When I set out to make this video presentation on the eating of blood, I had no idea that this was part of the Ezekiel 33 Watchman's message until yesterday, as I was putting together the finishing touches on this video. I'm not a good presenter, so please click the link in the slide presentation in the video description and examine the facts that I present. I am making this video to bring to everyone's attention the grievous sin of eating blood that we have all committed due to the apostasy from the truth, and also to restore the understanding of the instruction of Father Noah, which he passed down to his 3 sons, of which we are all descendants of. For those of Messiah Yeshua, in this video, I'm going to restore our understanding of the scriptures back to the original understanding so we can apply it to our lives and live the faith that was once delivered to the set-apart believers. Those living in the land of Israel have a higher accountability and responsibility. According to the prophecy given to Ezekiel in chapter 33, the eating of blood is the first offense listed that brings judgment to your nation and the land. To Israel, and specifically Levi, were the oracles of Elohim given, yet you lack this pure understanding, and to this day eat the blood with the flesh. The word repent or teshuvah is an actionable word and means to do the opposite. As a warning, everyone hearing this message will be responsible going forward after hearing this information, just as I am. Torah instructs us to not eat blood. Genesis 9:4. But flesh with the soul, life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat. This is Elohim instructing Noah and his sons. Deuteronomy 12:23. Only be sure that thou eat not the blood, for the blood is the life, and thou mayest not eat the soul, life, with the flesh. Leviticus 3:17. It shall be a perpetual statute for your generations throughout all your dwelling, that ye eat neither fat nor blood. This was to Israel and to the sojourners who dwelt among them. There's one law. If you've been grafted in, there's one law. Leviticus 7:27, whatsoever soul it be that eateth any manner of blood, even that soul shall be cut off from his people. Leviticus 17:10-11, and whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, that eateth any manner of blood, I will even set my face against that soul that eateth blood, and will cut him off from his people. For the soul, life, of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make atonement for your souls, for it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul. Leviticus 17:14, for the life of all flesh, the blood of it is for the life thereof. Therefore I said unto the children of Israel, ye shall eat the blood of no manner of flesh, for the life of all flesh is the blood thereof. Whatsoever eateth it shall be cut off. Book of Jubilees. Here we go, our instructions to not eat the blood. Chapter 6:7, but flesh with the life thereof, with the blood shall ye not eat, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. Lest your blood of your lives be required at the hand of every man, at the hand of every beast, will I require the blood of man. This is Elohim again instructing Noah and his sons. Jubilees 6:13-14. This is in the same chapter, and this is speaking to Moses on Mount Sinai, which is right here, you can where Mount Sinai is. Command ye the children of Israel to eat no blood, so that their names and their seed may be for Yahweh, our sovereign ruler, continually. And for this Torah there is no limit of days, for it is forever. So this is forever. This was given to Noah, reiterated to Moses, and this is forever. Jubilees chapter 6, verse 38. For this reason I command and testify to you, that you may testify to them. For after your death, Moses, your children will disturb them so that they will not make the year 364 days only, and this reason they will go wrong as to the new months and seasons and Shabbats and festivals. So they're going to have a totally different calendar, the lunar calendar, not the solar calendar, which is found at Qumran, where the righteous Zadok priests, not the apostate priests, changed the times. And they will eat all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh. Okay, and this is what we have today. The Israelites, the Levites, eating all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh. And now the whole world. Peter, apostles, the elders of the congregation at Jerusalem, Brother Shaul, who used to be Rabbi Shaul, and Barnabas, instruct us to not eat the blood. Acts 15, 20-21. But we write unto them, the Gentiles, that they abstain from the pollution of idols, and from fornication, from things strangled, and from blood. For Moses of old time hath in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath day. And that ye abstain from meats and idols, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, which if you keep yourself, you shall do well. So Christians alike, those following Yeshua Messiah, are also instructed to not eat the blood. There are different kinds of flesh. Paul, or Shaul, who was a Pharisee of Pharisees, who turned to faith in Yeshua. There were other Pharisees also who had received Yeshua as the Messiah. I believe even one of the Sanhedrin at the time. 1 Corinthians 15:19. All flesh is not the same flesh, but there is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds. Leviticus 7:26. Moreover, ye shall eat no manner of blood, whether it be of fowl or of beast, in any of your dwellings. Okay, dwellings is your houses. Same thing at the temple. Notice it is only talking about the blood of the flesh of beast and the flesh of fowl. And notice how the blood of fish is left out. Yes, they were in desert wilderness when this was given, but they also ate fish when they were in Egypt. So this means that the omission of the blood of fish is a different distinction, probably due to the processing cooking of it. Fish are never acceptable for sacrifice. Fish flesh does not contain the blood protein or the protein myoglobin, except for tuna. Tuna family fish do contain myoglobin. That's why they have the red flesh or the pinkish flesh. Fish flesh is white and usually contains little to no myoglobin. Messiah Yeshua had prepared roasted fish for his disciples upon the shore. And Messiah Yeshua fed the 3,000, 5,000 with fish, but it doesn't say if they were smoked or if they were broiled by fire. We don't have that information. And this doesn't mean that you cannot eat meat, because eating meat is permissible in our dwellings. Many of the Jews and the Jewish converts, upon hearing this video, are going to say, well, we eat kosher meat. So I want to bring your attention to this video series put by Gilgal Krant. I'll put a link in the video description. He filmed this video called The Kosher Dilemma, Blood. And in this series of The Kosher Dilemma dealing with the blood, he went out and had kosher meat tested by Food Lab. And he presented the results to this rabbi. And the rabbi says that the Torah requires all of us to remove as much blood as possible through salting. So for kosher meat, they remove the veins, the arteries, and anything like that with the blood, and then they pack the meat in salt, and it drains out fluid. It does drain out some myoglobin, but the blood cells are still remaining in the capillaries, and it's still a tremendous amount of myoglobin, as you will see in that top left picture. Those are kosher steaks. And look how red they are. It's all myoglobin. The salting in Leviticus chapter 2, verse 13 is to deal with the salting, adding salt to the bread, not to the flesh. So for all the rabbis that be saying, well, we have a covenant with the salt. Well, the salt is supposed to go on the burnt offerings. It's supposed to go on the heave offerings. And the heave offering, so let's go ahead and take a look. Numbers 18:9. All the heave offerings of thy holy things, which the children of Israel offer unto Yahweh, have I given thee, and thy sons and thy daughters with thee, by a statute forever. It is covenant with salt forever between Yahweh and unto thee, and to thy seed with thee. So you're thinking, okay, because we have a covenant with salt, we got to pack the meat with salt, and that's how we remove the blood. That's not true, because look, what you want here is Exodus 29:31. And thou shalt take the ram from the heave offering, the piece that was given to the priests of the consecration, and seethe his flesh in the holy place. And this is what they were supposed to eat. You can go ahead and read in verse 32. And here, Ezekiel 43:24, and thou shalt offer up them before the Yahweh, and the priest shall cast salt upon them, and they shall offer them up for a burnt offering unto Yahweh. So the meat that gets the salt is supposed to be burnt by fire and totally consumed by the fire of the altar. And the meat that the priests get is supposed to get seethed. And then here, the investigative journalist, then it shows the rabbi all the blood that's left in the capillary of the meat, the red dots. And the rabbi, he's shocked, but he says that the fact that we still find blood, I find it disappointing. Nonetheless, according to Jewish law, it's kosher. Well, according to Ezekiel 33, it brings judgment on the land. And I want to share this with you so you guys can understand why the Ezekiel 38 and 39 war is going to happen. It's because the first and foremost listed offense is that they eat with the blood. Here in the same video, this is the scientist. They say, as you can see, after the salting process, the blood cells are still in the line of the capillaries. And these little white lines are the capillaries, and these right here are the blood cells. This right here is chicken livers, and look at all the blood that's in the liver still after their kosher treatment. Definitely eating with the blood. Here's a random comment that I found regarding the blood in the capillaries. So this is a random comment, not to deal with any type of religious anything. This is just about food preparation. The initial soak is to loosen congealed blood and any caked dust, dirt, or grime. So if you can see this, the congealed blood in meat is in the capillaries. And then they say the initial boil and subsequent rinses to remove the loosened matter of the fragments from the cutting. So there's a soak and then there's a boil. This method is traditional, and this is speaking about someone here in Korea. This is traditional, and probably to the fact of meats were sold in open air markets with no refrigeration or whatever. So boiling the meat is traditional in some cultures for various different reasons. So I will now be talking about boiling the flesh, which is the meat, which is the only biblical example of how the righteous cooked their flesh to eat. Yes, there is no biblical examples of the righteous preserving meat like beef jerky or beef salami or anything like that, or any type of other dried meats. No pan frying, no grilling meat or roasting flesh. This is the flesh of the beast or of the bird. The only exception that we see of the righteous eating roasted meat is the Passover. So in that same video, here is the meat juice. So they took the guy took a piece of kosher meat and the juice before that's cooked that you see in the packaging, and they took the drop of the juice, put it on the glass, and these red dots are the blood cells that were in the juice of kosher meat. Now, mind you, this is clear and it's pink or red. This meat juice is mostly water. Animals, like humans, their muscles are about 70% water. What this proves is that after the kosher treatment of the salt, there's still trace amounts of red blood cells in the meat juice before it's even cooked. See the meat juice like in this packaging? This is not blood, all blood. This is what's called myoglobin. And the myoglobin is a protein that's in the muscles, that's suspended in, and it's suspended in the water. So this is that meat juice that she took that sample of in the previous slide. So there is red blood cells that are in here, but there's also most of this is all myoglobin. It's what gives the flesh of meat its red color, or swine, pig, pork, it has less myoglobin, so it's pink or white. Pork is not clean. It's not fit for human consumption. So here is myoglobin. You can read about the myoglobin, and it's distantly related to hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is what is in the blood that binds the oxygen and brings the oxygen. Like hemoglobin, myoglobin is a cytoplasmic protein that binds oxygen on a heme group And then you could read about it here. The difference is related to its different role. Whereas hemoglobin transports oxygen, myoglobin's function is to store the oxygen. So when the hemoglobin brings the oxygen to the myoglobin stores it in the muscle. And then when the muscle needs to be used to make that chemical reaction, that's how the whole thing goes. So red blood, hemoglobin, myoglobin are all part of the oxygen CO2 delivery system. Here's myoglobin, and this is a heme where the oxygen will be stored. And this is hemoglobin. They have 4 hemes, but they're smaller, it looks like, and they carry the oxygen to the myoglobin. So this article, red meat's a tasty treat, but too much can give you cancer. This article is written by the author, Neil Wheat, who is a senior lecturer in pharmaceutical chemistry at the University of Sydney. This is just a portion of his article regarding myoglobin, and this is what I found on it. He says, red meat includes beef, veal, lamb, mutton, pork, and goat. Their red color comes from a protein in the muscle called myoglobin. The purpose of myoglobin is to store oxygen in muscle cells in a way that's similar to how hemoglobin carries oxygen in the bloodstream. White meats such as fish and chicken don't contain this protein at levels anywhere near as high. Chickens, I believe, are unclean. They creep on all 4 toes. They could barely fly like 50 feet. They are birds of prey. They kill mice and they kill snakes. And they're also scavengers, like they'll eat dead animals. So I don't think chickens are clean. They don't have feathers on their face. They have elongated necks, similar to that, like the vultures. Myoglobin is broken down during digestion and forms a family of carcinogenic compounds called N-nitrosios. The target of the N-nitrosios is the DNA inside cells, which they change through a process called methylation. The long-term effect of too much methylation is that the cells stop producing the right amount of the essential proteins and enzymes it needs to maintain normal function, and it becomes cancerous. This is the reason why we have these huge high levels, this epidemic of cancer in the world. There's just, people are eating more and more flesh, more and more, I don't want to call it blood, but it's part of the blood with the flesh, which is the myoglobin. So blood doesn't naturally sit in flesh other than in the capillaries, which is not a lot of blood to be causing problems when you eat it. But the real problem with the flesh is the myoglobin. So I believe this to be, when the ordinances were given, it was speaking of the myoglobin in the flesh. It's like hemoglobin, except it stores the oxygen. He says, unfortunately, there's no safe levels of N-nitrosios in the body. So you can have a little bit and it still can cause cancer. In the old study with rats, using the chemical N-nitrosouresaline in a model, chemical researchers found a dose of this little much per kilogram of body mass each day was enough to induce cancer. Okay? These are loving instructions of the Most High Father. And the Talmud and all of the rabbis have gone around the ways of the Most High and have given you false ways, and you are eating with the blood, as I'm going to continue to prove here. And this is going to incite the Ezekiel 38 and 39 judgment that's coming upon those that are inhabiting the waste places in the land of Israel. To clarify and reiterate, other than the Passover, which you see is roasted, the only method of cooking flesh of beast or bird by the righteous is seething, sodding, / boiling of the flesh in flesh pots, and we're going to talk about that. As you will see, when I boil flesh in this video, the large amount of what I call blood in the video, but really it's the cancer-causing myoglobin, and fat, and a trace amount of red blood cells that were congealed in the capillaries. You're always supposed to cook the meat the same day that was slaughtered, but nowadays we buy it in a meat market. Well, then you need to soak it to allow it to relax a little bit, and then bring it up to a boil, it seems like. And while you boil it and bring the meat up to a boil, the capillaries probably would open up, allowing the blood cells to exit. More so, boiling the flesh or seething the flesh or soddening the flesh, it removes the myoglobin, the cancer-causing agent of the red meat. It also takes out all the taste of the meat. That's why I believe when Abraham had a servant prepare the calf for the angel of Yahweh and the 2 other men, that he sat down beside it like a yogurt dipping sauce probably, to eat it with the flesh, to give that fattiness taste back to the meat. So when I reference blood in this video sometimes, I'm not just talking about the blood in the capillaries, but also the myoglobin. Also, I can't reiterate enough that eating with the blood is the first listed offense of several that is going to bring on the judgment of the Ezekiel 38 and 39 war. And I show it to you coming up, and you can see how the mountains are desolate. Which mountains? The mountains of Israel. So this is the sin of eating blood with the flesh. So this is eating unsodden flesh, and we'll go into what sodden flesh is. Sodden flesh is boiled flesh, and we'll take a look at how boiling the flesh removes all blood and all the myoglobin, and it also removes the fat out of the flesh. So King Saul's army in 1 Samuel 14:31 through 34, and they smote the Philistines that day from Michmash to Ajalon, and the people were very faint. And the people flew upon the spoil, and they took sheep and oxen and calves, and they slew them on the ground. So they slaughtered them on the ground. Obviously, you're removing the blood when you slaughter them on the ground. And the people did eat them with the blood. I don't believe they ate it raw, but they did not remove the blood by soddening it. Then they told Saul, saying, behold, the people sin against Yahweh, in that they eat with the blood. So they were eating the meat with the blood. It doesn't say a raw here. And he said, ye have transgressed. Roll a great stone unto me this day. And Shaul, King Saul, said, disperse yourselves among the people, and say unto them, bring me hither every man his ox, and every man his sheep, and slay them here, and eat, and sin not against Yahweh in the eating with the blood. So he brought out a big stone to bleed out the animals better, but they still didn't sodden the flesh, and they didn't remove all of the blood and myoglobin. Also, a couple other things to point out regarding King Saul. You know, he said to bring a big stone, and as if he wanted to put on a show to appease the people. Yes, he is aware of eating with the blood, but he would know that to properly eat without the blood, you would have to seethe the boiled sod in the flesh, as we see in 1 Samuel chapter 2. That's where we see that's the customary thing of removing the blood from the meat. So Saul here, it appears that this is the beginning of his apostasy, where he is making it seem as though he's appeasing Yahweh, removing the blood in front of the people, but not doing it all the way. In the next chapter, we strictly see King Saul's disobedience when he doesn't wipe out the people in the land, and he holds back and he doesn't do as instructed by Yahweh in the beginning of chapter 15. The message of Ezekiel 33, Watchman. So here we're going to take a look at this, Ezekiel 33, verses 23 to 29. Then the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, they that inhabit those wastes of the land of Israel speak, saying, Abraham was one, and he inherited the land, but we are many. The land is given us for inheritance. Wherefore say unto them, Thus saith Adonai Yahweh, ye eat with the blood, and lift up your eyes towards your idols, and shed blood. And shall ye possess the land? Notice the first accusation or the first condemnation against Israel is that they eat with blood, just as they eat with blood in this day. Now, just because you bleed out the animal, there's still blood with the meat, in the meat, and it needs to be removed. And we'll look how the priests did it. There's also another example coming up in Ezekiel 24 of how the flesh pot was used to cook the meat. Ye shall stand upon your sword, and ye work abomination, and ye defile every one his neighbor's wife, and shall ye possess the land? So eating blood is before defiling every one's his neighbor's wife. So say this unto them, Thus saith Adonai Yahweh, As I live, surely they that are in the waste shall fall by the sword, and him that is in the open field will I give to the beasts to be devoured. And they that be in the forts and in the caves shall die of pestilence. For I will lay the land most desolate. Why? Defiling your neighbor's wife. You can do that by lusting after her in your heart. According to Yeshua, this is the true way that men can do this. You can also do it physically, But the first reason about this judgment is the fact that they are eating with the blood. And the pomp of her strength shall cease, and the mountains of Israel shall be desolate, that none shall pass through. Now, what is the mountains of Israel up in the north, there in the Golan?
None shall pass through. This is mentioned in Ezekiel 38 and 39. So this is a precursor to Ezekiel 38 and 39. This is relevant for today.
Then shall they know that I am Yahweh, when I have laid the land most desolate, because of all their abominations which they have committed. And we know that this is Ezekiel 33. Ezekiel 38 and 39 happened
just a few chapters after Ezekiel 33 and takes place
on the mountains up there in the Golan by Bashan. Another example of eating blood with meat, we know that Eli's two sons, Eli was a righteous priest. He raised up Samuel, but his two sons were wicked men. And 1 Samuel chapter 2, 12 to 27. Now the sons of Eli were the sons of Belial. They were sons of
worthlessness.
They knew not Yahweh. And the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servant came while the flesh was in seething. So while it was boiling in water or simmering in water, with a flesh hook of three teeth, so like a claw or a flesh hook of 3 teeth in his hand, and he would struck it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot, wherever it was seething in, and we'll look, there were several types.
Clay pots or brass pots.
And the flesh hook brought up, the priest took for himself. So this is how it was done.
The priests were supposed to eat sodden flesh, not roasted.
So they did in Shiloh. This is where the tabernacle was, unto all the Israelites that came thither. Also before they burnt the fat, the priest's servant came and said to the men that sacrifice, give flesh to roast for the priest. So they wanted the roasted flesh, for he will not have sodden flesh of thee, but raw. So this is the wickedness here. They wanted to eat the roasted flesh that because they wanted the blood,
the myoglobin,
that was still in the flesh. They didn't want the blood
and the myoglobin and the
fat cooked out. These were sons of Belial. And if any man said unto them, let them not fail to burn the fat presently, and to take as much as thy soul desireth, then he would answer him, nay, but thou shalt give it to me now, and if not now, I will take it by force. Wherefore the sin of the young men was very great before Yahweh, for men abhorred the offering of Yahweh. So their servants, the servants of the sons of Eli,
these servants are lower ranked Levite priests,
were after the ways of the sons of Eli, and they were practicing the wickedness here of eating of roasted flesh. They didn't want the flesh that didn't have any taste. They wanted the blood and the fat, which was forbidden. The flesh pots. Exodus 16 verse 3. And the children of Israel said unto them, would to Elohim we had died by the hand of Yahweh in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full, for ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. So they were even removing the blood
and myoglobin using flesh pots
in Egypt. 2 Chronicles
35 verse 13.
This is regarding the Passover. I should have had it in another verse coming up, but we have it here earlier. And they roasted the Passover with fire, according to the ordinance, but they offered other holy offerings, sod. Okay, this is boiled, they in pots and in cauldrons and in pans, and they divided them speedily among all the people. So in these different shaped vessels, they would boil or sodden them, and divided them speedily among all the people. So this is how they ate. And we're going to get in how the Passover sacrifice is a different sacrifice. Zechariah 14:20-21. And in the day, this is in the future, when things have been restored to Israel, and here in Jerusalem and to Judah. In that day shall there be upon the bells of the horses holiness unto Yahweh, and the pots in Yahweh's house shall be like the bowls before the altar. Yea, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah shall be holiness unto Yahweh of hosts. And all they that sacrifice shall come and to take of them, and seethe therein, to boil therein right here, okay? They're going to boil therein, and removing the blood from the meat, And in that day there shall no more be the Canaanite in the house of Yahweh of hosts. Now, I believe Caleb was a Canaanite.
He was with
Joshua, but Caleb was a Canaanite, and I believe Caleb represented Judah until a specific amount of
generations to pass, because when
Judah laying with Tamar, but Caleb, I believe, was a Canaanite. But right now, currently to this day, there's Canaanites in the house of Yahweh somewhere.
Now, if Caleb were a Canaanite, which I believe, he was a righteous Canaanite. Now, these Canaanites that are no longer in the house of Yahweh, these are wicked Canaanites, and they are imposters.
To identify these people, well, you come here, there's definitely a huge genetic differentiation among Israelites. You see a lot of the Hispanic-looking Israelites that they're the J1 haplogroup. There's over 100 million male J1s in the United States, Central America, South America. Could these be the sons of Jacob? Because they look like all the peoples around here? Possibly, we don't know. When I believe that when Daniel, the prophet Daniel, and the prophet John the Revelator arrive, they'll have the wisdom and understanding to sort out who's who, along with whoever receives the double portion spirit of Eliyahu, possibly. Yes, Daniel and John, I believe to be the two witnesses, and I have a whole study on that. You should check that out. And the correct biblical example of using the flesh pots is found here in Ezekiel 24. Ezekiel 24, verse 1 through 14. And again, in the 9th year, the 10th month, and the 10th day of the month, the word of Yahweh came unto me, Ezekiel, saying, Son of man, write the name of the day. Even of this day, the king of Babylon set himself against Jerusalem this same day. Which day? It was on the 10th day of the 10th month. And utter a parable unto the rebellious house, and say unto them, Thus saith Adonai Yahweh, set on a pot, set it on, and also pour water into it. Gather the pieces thereof into it, every good piece, the thigh and the shoulder, and fill it with choice bones. And take the choice of the flock, and burn also the bones under it, and make it boil well, and let them seethe the bones of it therein. So the meat and the bones are being seethed therein, it looks like. Wherefore, thus saith Yahweh Elohim, woe to the bloody city, to the pot whose scum is therein. And in this, later on in this presentation, I'll show you the blood scum that's in the pot, and whose scum is not gone out of it. Bring it out piece by piece, and let no lot fall upon it. For her blood is in the midst of her, and she is set up the top of a rock. She poured it not upon the ground to cover it with dust. So to pour what? The water and the blood mixture. She poured it not on the ground. And that's the offense that's being done this day in Jerusalem, in Judah, in all of Israel, and in the whole world. But specifically here, the prophet had. That it might cause fury to come to take vengeance. The day of vengeance is approaching fastly here, as we can all see. I have set her blood upon the top of a rock, that it should
not be uncovered.
Thus saith the Adonai Yahweh, woe to the bloody city, that's Jerusalem. I will even make the pile of fire great. Heap on wood, kindle the fire, consume the flesh, and spice it well, and let the bones be burned. Then set it empty upon coals thereof, and the brass of it may be hot, and may burn, that the filthiness of it may be molten in it, that the scum of it may be consumed. And we'll see that in the Levitical law, that when the priest seethed meat in a clay pot, you broke it. But if you seethed it in a metal pot, a brazen pot, they were supposed to fire it. And that's what's being done here. And that's what's going to happen to the bloody city. She hath wearied herself with lies, and her great scum went not forth out of her. Her scum shall be in the fire. Scum is going to be in the fire. Okay, this is the leaven of the Pharisees. In thy filthiness is lewdness, because I have purged thee. And thou was not purged. Thou shalt not be purged from thy filthiness anymore. So he's not having it. When? The vengeance. Vengeance comes after the 70 years, possibly. This is what I believe a possible interpretation. Till I have caused my fury to rest upon thee. I, Yahweh, have spoken it, and it shall come to pass, and I will do it. I will not go back, neither will I spare, neither will I repent. According to thy ways, according to thy doings, shall they judge thee, saith Adonai Yahweh.
Israel's adversaries are going to be the mechanism of Yahweh's judgment.
So here Ezekiel is showing us the blood water is to be poured out on the ground and covered with dirt. This is the proper way of
Cooking your flesh.
and not just to be done in the temple, but the same manner is to be done in our dwelling places, as you will see according to the Torah, the instruction. The pouring out of blood on the ground within thy gates, at your house. So this is the ordinances that are to be done in your own gates, at your own house, not just at the temple. Deuteronomy 12:15-16, notwithstanding thou mayest kill and eat flesh in all thy gates. So they're giving permission to eat flesh within their gates. They don't have to come to Shiloh to sacrifice or to Jerusalem to sacrifice their meat. They can slaughter it there at their house. Whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, so whatever you're hungry for, according to the blessing of Yahweh thy Elohim, which he hath given thee. The unclean and the clean may eat thereof, as of the roebuck and as of the hart. So the unclean and the clean. This is spirit. This is not speaking of unclean and clean foods. This is the unclean and clean. So if you were unclean during the daytime because you touched something, that doesn't mean that you can't kill and prepare this meat and eat it. Okay, it doesn't mean that you have to wait until nighttime to eat the meat. In the temple, you had to be spiritually clean to eat the meat, to eat the sacrifice. But at your own houses, you can be unclean, which means that you could have touched a dead body that day or touched a menstruating woman, and you could still eat the food. As the roebuck, which I believe is a clean animal, and as the hart, which I believe is the deer, another clean animal. Only ye shall not eat the blood. Ye shall pour it upon the earth as water. Well, what does that mean to pour it on the earth as water? We're going to show you. When you empty out the flesh pot, the seething pot of the water that has the blood and water mixture, that's how you pour it out as water. Okay, when you slaughter the animal, of course the blood goes out onto the ground and it goes onto the ground. That is correct. But then when you cut it up and you put it into the pot, there's still blood
in the flesh.
And like I said, when you seethe it, when you boil it, this is the proper way. So you do not eat the soul, the life of the animal with the flesh. That's forbidden to Christians, to everyone, to all the children of Noah. And no, I do not preach Noahide laws. I preach the 10 commandments that were given right here, Mount Sinai. I think you can see the top of it right there. Jebel Allah's down in Saudi Arabia, the land of Midian, okay, where the Shashu of Yahweh were, possibly. Now, what I want to bring to your attention also is that this is practical to our lives today. It's grievous sin. So, you shall pour it on as water. Again, Deuteronomy, it's reiterated twice here in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 15:22-23, thou shalt eat it within thy gates. Speaking of the meat, the unclean and the clean person shall eat it alike. See, the clean, unclean, and clean person, like right here. As the roebuck and as the hart. So, clean animals. Only thou shalt not eat the blood thereof. Thou shalt pour it upon the ground as water.
Of course, you got to gather the blood when you slaughter the animal and pour it out as water, but also you have to pour out
the blood mixture, the water blood mixture. You have to pour it out as water. I'm going to show you what that is like at the end here, where I show you how to seethe, and how it removes the blood and the fat from the meat. The pouring out of blood on the altar base. Deuteronomy 12:27, and thou shalt offer thy burnt offerings, the flesh and the blood upon the altar of Yahweh, and the blood of thy sacrifices. They collected the blood, the actual blood, and they poured it out upon the altar of Yahweh thy Elohim, and thou shalt eat the flesh.
What type of flesh? 1 Samuel chapter 2, soddened, seethed, boiled flesh.
Leviticus 4, verse 34. And the priest shall take the blood of the sin offering with his finger, and put upon the horns of the altar of the burnt offering, and shall pour out all the blood thereof at the bottom of the altar. The pouring out of the blood water is to be done at your house the same way done at the temple, and the same way as Ezekiel 24. Here's a whole list of the examples of soddening and boiling the meat. 1 Kings 19 through 21. Okay, so he departed thence and found Elisha. This is Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who was plowing 12 yoke of oxen before him. That's 24, like the 24 elders that we see in the throne room. And he,
Speaking of Elisha,
with the 12th, and Eliyahu, passed by him and cast his mantle upon him. And he left the oxen and ran after Eliyahu and said, Let me, I pray thee, kiss my father and my mother, and I will follow thee. And he said unto them, Go back again, for what have I done to thee? And he returned back from him, and took a yoke of oxen, and slew them, and boiled their flesh. So this is the prophet here. He boiled their flesh with the instruments of the oxen, and gave unto the people, and they did eat. And he arose, and went after Eliyahu, and ministered unto him. So the first action of Elisha, El is our salvation. His first action that he did once he received the mantle was removing the blood from the flesh. That's the first record here that we see. Okay? Hallelujah for this understanding.
this is so important in identifying Elijah when he comes before the great and dreadful day of Yahweh. To be more specific, the Elijah type, and I believe he's going to receive the double portion spirit of Elijah just as Elisha did. And he will summon the two witnesses as Elisha summoned the two she-bears that destroyed the youth, 42 of them, as the two witnesses will do their ministry for 42 months.
2 Kings 6:28. And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? Okay, this is something really grievous, Israel and Judah. Listen up. And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? This is when they were being besieged. And the woman answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son, and did eat him. Why did she boil his son? To remove the soul from her son's flesh, because they did not want to eat her son's soul. So they boiled and removed the soul from her son's flesh, and they ate him. That's a grievous thing to talk about. And I said unto her the next day, Give thy son, that we may eat. And she hid her son. And how do we know this is a true story? Lamentations chapter 4, verse 10. The hands of the pitiful woman have sodden their own children. They boiled their own children. They removed the soul of their own children, so they ate their flesh. They were meat in the destruction of the daughter of my people. Leviticus 8:37. And Moses said unto his sons, this is to the Levites, Listen up, Levites, so-called Levites, Canaanites, boil the flesh at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and there eat it with the bread that is in the basket of consecrations, as I commanded, saying, Aaron and his sons shall eat it. So this is the way how Aaron and his sons are supposed to eat the flesh boiled. And if Aaron and his sons are eating the flesh boiled, all Israel should do it. They are an example. Numbers 6-19. And the priest shall take the sodden shoulder of the ram, and 1 unleavened cake out of the basket, and 1 unleavened wafer, and shall put them on the hands of the Nazarite after the hair of the separation is shaven. Remember how we read in Jubilees, chapter 6, that was right here probably at Mount Sinai, Jabal Allah's, true Mount Sinai, Jabal Allah's. It would be prophesied that his sons would do these things. Well, here you have it. We see it starting with Samuel. It was already happening in Samuel with his two sons and the priests that were underneath him, the servant priests that were underneath the two sons. They were already eating the blood with the meat, as it was prophesied in Jubilees chapter 6. Also, you have distorted the times and the seasons because you followed the moon, not the calendar that's in the book of Hanok. Hallelujah, I was able to get this thing plugged in, but I had to relocate.
My battery almost died.
Here in Ezekiel 46, regarding the millennial temple, not the third temple that I'm not sure is going to be built. I'm leaning that it's not going to be built, but the millennial temple, here we see it. Then he said unto me, This is the place where the priest shall boil the trespass offering and the sin offering, where they shall bake the bread offering, that they bear not out into the outer court to sanctify the people. So they're going to boil the meat. The priests are going to boil the meat. They're going to seethe the meat, to take the blood and the fat out of the meat. Then he said unto me, These are the places of them that boil, where the ministers of the house shall boil the sacrifice of the people. So they're going to boil the sacrifices, and it's going to be done in order in the millennial reign of Yeshua HaMashiach. Exodus 16:23. Then he said unto them, this is that which Yahweh has said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto Yahweh. Bake that which ye will bake, and seed that which ye will seed, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning, till the next day. So on the sixth day, they were supposed to bake and cook. And then whatever they ate that night, whatever they had, it was going to be
leftovers
for the next day for them to eat, which was the Sabbath day. When you see they woke up, and if you read Exodus 16, they woke up, and Moses says, today is the Sabbath day. So that's why I believe the Sabbath day started in the morning, not at evening. Evening means, Erev means to mix. How do you mix days? You don't mix days. Days are separated. So you have the daytime, which is the first part, then you have the nighttime. And what brings them together is Erev, the mixing of the days. So there's a whole study on that.
By YouTube channel To Be Saved.
Just trying to restore that understanding there. A lot of people receive it and are coming back to the truth of this understanding. Exodus 23, verse 19, and also Exodus 34:26. This is exact same wording. The first of the firstfruits of thy land thou shalt bring into the house of Yahweh thy Elohim. Thou shalt not seethe a kid in his mother's milk. It's not about eating meat with cheese. We saw Abraham with the angel of Yahweh. They set before him meat
and some sort of yogurt dairy sauce, I suspect. It's about using the mother's milk to remove the blood, the soul of the kid from the flesh.
So Levitical law, instructions for the sin offering. Leviticus 6:25-30. Speak unto Aaron and to his sons, saying, this is the law of the sin offering. In the place where the burnt offering is killed, shall the sin offering be killed before Yahweh. It is most holy. The priest that offer it for sin shall eat it. In the holy place shall it be eaten, in the court of the tabernacle of the congregation. Whatsoever shall touch the flesh thereof shall be holy. And when there is sprinkled of the blood there upon it, any garment thou shalt wash with whereon it was sprinkled in the holy place. But the earthen vessel, the clay pot, wherein it was sodden, where it was seed, shall be broken. Okay, because there's that scum that comes on to the pot. And if it be sodden, okay, in a brazen pot, in a brass pot, copper pot, it shall be scored. The pot shall be scored. That means burnt out, and then rinsed with water. And that's what we see in Ezekiel. So when judgment comes from the vengeance there, from Yahweh's vengeance, the first is going to be scored with fire, and then there's going to be the latter rain of the water that's going to wash
mikvah, baptize
the remnant. All the males among the priests thereof shall eat thereof. It is most holy, and no sin offering whereof any blood is brought into the tabernacle of the congregation to reconcile withal in the holy place shall be eaten. It shall be burnt in the fire. So here we have the instruction for the sin offering. This is now the instruction for the
guilt and trespass
offering. And remember, earlier on, in our dwelling places, this is the same matter of the priest, pouring out the
blood myoglobin water,
just like in Ezekiel 24. Leviticus 7:1-10. Likewise, this is the law of the trespass offering. So the law of the trespass offering is likewise like the law of the sin offering. It is most holy. In the place where they kill the burnt offering shall they kill. So the burnt offering, they shall kill the trespass offering, and the blood sprinkle on. And he shall offer it of the fat thereof, the rump and the fat of the cover inwards, and the two kidneys and the fat that is on them, which is by the flanks, and the caul that is above the liver, with the kidneys, and he shall take it, and the priest shall burn them upon the altar for an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. It is a trespass offering. Every male among the priests shall eat thereof. It shall be eaten in the holy place. It is most holy. As the sin offering, right here, so is the trespass offering. And the sin offering was sodden. So as the sin offering, so is the trespass offering. Sodden, sodden. there is one law for them. The priest that maketh atonement therewith shall have it. And the priest that offereth any man's burnt offering, even the priest shall have to himself the skin of the burnt offering which he hath offered, and all the bread, meat, which is the meat offering. Okay, King James calls the bread meat sometimes. There's flesh, which is the real, which is what we call meat, and then there's meat, which is what we call bread. So all the bread offering that is baking in the oven, and all that is dressed in the frying pan, so you can dress it up in the frying pan and in the pan, shall be the priest that offer it. And every bread offering mingled with oil and dry, also there's one dry, shall all the sons of Aaron have, one as much as another. So, the guilt offering is the same conditions as the sin offering, which means the flesh is supposed to be sodden, which means to remove the blood from the flesh.
To confirm that the trespass offering and the sin offering are both boiled, Ezekiel 46, verse 20. Then said he unto me, this is the place where the priest shall boil the trespass offering and the sin offering.
Here we see in Leviticus 7:22, verse 20 to 27, that the consumption of fat is also forbidden. And as you will see, when you sodden the meat, the fat comes out. And Yahweh spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, ye shall eat no manner of fat, no manner of it, of ox, or of sheep, or of goat. And the fat of the beast that dieth of itself, and the fat of which is torn of beast, may be used in any other use. So you can use it, but you can't eat thereof. But ye shall in no wise eat of it. So you're not supposed to eat of it. All the other clean animals, so at your house, if you were to kill a deer, you're not allowed to eat of the fat of the deer. Okay, you're not supposed to eat no manner of fat. Whosoever eateth the fat of the beast, of which men offer an offering made unto fire unto Yahweh, even the soul that eateth it shall be cut off from his people. So the Passover, as I said earlier, is a unique sacrifice. This is the sacrifice that you eat the blood with the meat. It's like the only time, and you're commanded to do so, because you're commanded to eat and roast with fire. Exodus 12, verse 8 to 9. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, speaking of the Passover, roast with fire, and unleavened bread, with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor soddened at all with water, but roast with fire his head and with his legs, and with the pudence thereof. So it shouldn't be pink inside, it should be fully cooked, so it's not raw, and it's not supposed to be sodden with water where you take the blood out of the sacrifice. The blood, you remove the blood by slaughtering it, but there's still blood in the meat. That's why you can see it's red.
Blood being the myoglobin, as well as the blood in the capillaries.
And blood is still cooked in the meat, and you roast it with fire. So you're supposed to eat the blood with the meat. Okay, this is the special sacrifice. This is the most tastiest sacrifice of all of the sacrifices, the sin offering and the trespass offering. But the Passover sacrifice is the only time that you would partake of this precious blood, the blood of Yeshua. Yeshua said, if you do not drink his blood and eat his body. I'll have to take a look at that. But he's speaking of the blood and the wine, but also he was the Passover lamb. And remember, they're like, this is a tough saying. What do you mean? Well, this is the only sacrifice that has the blood in the sacrifice that you're supposed to partake of. And Yeshua's the example that we do to memorialize that Yeshua gave us is the wine, which represented his blood, and the bread, which was without leaven, without sin, his body, which was without sin. And this is the meal that we do to memorialize that, possibly by Paul to the Corinthian congregation,
the Passover
without leaven. So yes, here's the book of Acts chapter 15. This is for the believers of Messiah Yeshua. And hopefully you who are viewing this are coming into faith in Messiah Yeshua, as you can see how he is the Passover lamb, the Passover sacrifice for Israel. And he's the Passover lamb that takes away the sins of the world, those who put their trust and hope in him and receive the mercy of Elohim. So here we have the Council of Jerusalem. See, there was a sect of the Pharisees which believed what? Believed upon Yeshua HaMashiach. We also see here at this gathering that Paul was there. And Paul was a Pharisee of Pharisees. More than any contemporary Pharisaic rabbi, chief rabbi, Paul excelled beyond all of you. His understanding excelled upon all of you. He was a student of Gamaliel. He knew, and he came into faith in Messiah Yeshua miraculously, and he did not preach against the law. He only preached the good news, the Basor, on the Sabbath. He never abolished any of that. But he did do away with the leaven of the Pharisees, the oral traditions that were false interpretations of the Torah, and he removed that from them. The leaven of the Pharisees. See, there were believers of Messiah Yeshua, yes, okay, and you're all going to be, if you're Pharisees seeing this, it might be news to you. Come into the faith of Messiah Yeshua, but leave behind the leaven, your false understanding that has blinded your eyes, and come into the truth. You do not need no man to teach you, because upon receiving the truth of Messiah Yeshua, you receive the Ruach, and he will lead you and guide you into all truths, as Paul received the Ruach. And he said he counted none of what he had learned of any value. He forsake all of it. Even though he excelled beyond every single of his contemporaries, he valued none of it. So we have believers of Messiah Yeshua, but what happened was they said, Gentiles, you got to get circumcised to be saved. So they all gathered in Jerusalem, and they created a council, and the Ruach HaKodesh gave them the wisdom and understanding, Peter, the wisdom and understanding that there's no differentiation between the Gentile and the Yahudim, the Jews, regarding salvation. And the consensus of this council, they instructed them that we trouble them not, because they couldn't keep the works that you guys can't even keep, that the Gentiles which are turned to Elohim, but write unto them that they abstain from the pollution of idols, so they don't eat any food sacrificed to idols, and from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. For Moses of old time hath in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Sabbath day. So the Shabbat was being kept by Gentiles because they were going into the synagogues, the local communities that had received Messiah Yeshua. Synagogue leaders, especially in Corinth, which was a Greek city, there was a Jewish synagogue leader that received Messiah Yeshua. Paul lived among them for a year and a half. And what did he do? It's recorded that he kept the Sabbath with them 84 times. That means that Gentiles were keeping the Sabbath with them 84 times as they gathered on the Sabbath there at Corinth. Year and a half straight, Paul kept the Sabbath with them. Again, second time in the same chapter 15, it's reiterated, just like it's reiterated in the Torah, for the Ruach HaKodesh, for it seemed good to the Ruach HaKodesh and to us to lay upon you no greater burden. This is the letter that they wrote to all of these congregations of Gentiles and Jews, than the necessary things, that ye abstain from meats offered to idols, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, from which ye keep yourselves, ye shall do well, fare ye well. So just like it was reiterated in Deuteronomy twice, in Leviticus twice, about not eating the blood, it's reiterated twice in the record of the book of Acts to Christians. And I don't like the word Christians, but that's what it is. And so Christians are instructed to not eat blood and have failed here as well. So how was I led into the understanding of using the flesh pot? There's a group of Messianic believers, Straightway Ministries, who I don't fully endorse for several reasons. The women gave an example on how they attempt to remove the blood. They just soak it in water with salt overnight. And when I saw this was not the right way. It's great effort, but it's not even close to removing all of the blood and myoglobin from the meat. There's still blood in the meat, which is the soul or the life with the meat. So this is the best understanding that they had, but this is not the correct way to do it. So hopefully their congregational leader sees this and receives this. Then after I saw this video with only about 4,700 views popped up into my feed. Learn how to take out 100% of the blood out of deer meat. I said, what? And so, hallelujah, I watched this video. This is not like a religious or biblical video. This is a guy trying to remove the gaminess out of his deer meat. And I saw this video. And as I saw this video, it just hit me. So there's going to be a link to this video in the description as well. And now I'm going to go ahead and play my video on how I did it following this guy's example. It's about 5 minutes worth on how to properly do it, and you can see with your own eyes how the blood
And the myoglobin
is in the water and how the scum sticks to the pot. And this is just the correct way to do it. Hallelujah. The 10th day of the 11th month on Elohim's Enoch Zadok priest solar calendar. We're going to be taking the blood out of meat. The ancient Israelites, if you read all the time, it talks about their flesh pots. And as my helpmeet Jackie pointed out to me in Samuel's 2 sons, they told the people to bring them the meat before it was boiled. So obviously the blood was still in it. Just in my feed on YouTube, I had this guy talking about boiling blood out of deer meat, and it just hit me and made sense. So what we have here is we have a flesh pot filled with warm water, and we have meat. Now this is going to be ground. We're going to use ground lamb, and we're going to be putting it in water, and we're going to be putting it in the oven at 200 degrees. About 3 pounds of ground lamb. I've never seen this done with ground meat. Again, I'm going to be put a link in the description of the guy that did the deer meat and where I got this idea from. But as soon as I was watching this video, I was like, that's a flesh pot. And it talks about in the future about Israel, and their flesh pots are going to be holy unto Yahweh. And so this is actually a flesh pot. So we're going to try to get back and see how the Israelites did it. Again, in 1 Samuel, I'll be pulling up the scriptures here once we put this in the oven. But Samuel, his 2 sons, they wanted meat that was not boiled. So obviously the boiled meat, they would have to boil the meat to get the blood out of it, and then they would, I guess, cook it then. So, all right, we have 3 pounds of ground lamb in here in the form of meatballs with no spicing or salt or anything else. Putting this in here, we're going to put it in the oven. We're at altitude here in Gardnerville, Nevada, and I got the oven preheated about 210. It's a convection oven. It's going to pull the blood out. So we're going to go ahead and let it stay in here for about 2 hours at 210. And then we're going to pour out the blood with the water and blood mixture out. And then we're going to probably do it again one more time to make sure all the blood's out. Okay, so it's been a couple of hours. It was at 210, almost 220. We moved it up to 220. We're going to be taking out the pot right now. And we're going to take a look at what the water looks like. And as you can see, it's pretty... It's definitely pink. It has some fat has come to the top. We're going to go ahead and pour it out, see what we have here. Look at all that blood that's coming out of the water on top. You can see it.
This is all the myoglobin that's in the meat. Look at the coloration leaving the meatballs.
And so this looks like this is the right process of preparing your meat. You can see the blood sticking around on the side of the pot. And we'll go ahead and hopefully we'll do it again. So that's the first, again, look at the blood coming out.
The myoglobin.
And now what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and do it one more time.
Are you sure you rinse them off?
Yeah, even when you rinse it off, you can see the blood. It'll come off. We're going to mop again. Yeah, I guess you can almost spray. So we're going to do it. We'll do it again here. So we're going to get it, fill the pot back up. We're going to do it for another 2 hours and see what happens. We just got done, and as you can take a look, this is after 2 more hours. It's very brothy, and there's a lot of fat that has come to the top. So we're going to go ahead and drain it and see what type of blood comes out of this pot, this flesh pot that the Israelites used. And it's not as bloody as it was the first. And so now we'll go ahead and take a look at inside. You can see the blood that has built up. The blood is on the side of the flesh pot. This is a flesh pot. That is the blood. I just refilled the pot with water, and as you can see, look at the film. Look at the blood floating on the top that's coming off of the meatballs. So we're going to go ahead and do it one more time, and hopefully we'll have removed all the blood from the meat. Okay, so it's been about another hour and a half in here. Take a look at the color of the liquid now. You can see this is our third time in the flesh pot, and there's no blood. We're going to go ahead and drain it, see what type of color we get in the pour. But the water's looking really clear. And as you can see, this is just clear water now. So all the blood has all been cooked out in our flesh pot. Now here's the results. Here are the meats.
Also, I want you guys to take note of the meatballs. Look how white they were. I wish I had a video where I broke open one of them. It was almost completely white inside with just a smallest hue of faint pink. But I was amazed, and when you see the color of the water, how much myoglobin came out of the meat when I was cooking it that slow, that long in the flesh pot. My process was the first take ever of me trying to remove the blood, or what I would call the myoglobin, from the flesh, and can be approved thereon. The third period of seething the flesh was not needed, so that will reduce the time if you want to go slow. It will take probably about 2.5 hours or 3 hours with a change of the water there to remove all of the myoglobin / blood, remnant blood in the capillaries / fat from the food. In Ezekiel 24, he's not instructed to add salt, but it does say spice it up. So that's something that we need to look into. But I don't believe that salt is needed to remove the blood from the flesh when you do this. As you can see, how much myoglobin came out in my first take doing this. Because of the lower cooking temperature that I used right under boiling, again, the process was very slow. Doing it at boiling will speed the process. It might toughen the meat, but then once it's removed, you could probably cook the meat slow. And I imagine that's how it was done. That could all be refined. I'm not doing this to be like a chef. I'm just sharing with you the process of it, and it could be refined and improved on. I'm just warning you about eating with the blood, eating the myoglobin, which is eaten with blood. I believe that this is what Yahweh Elohim was referring to when he instructed Noah, when he instructed Moses. So in the video of the guy removing the blood from out of the deer meat, or the myoglobin, after soddening the blood from the flesh, he continues to cook the meat for more hours. I don't know if he had a pressure cooker or whatnot. He cooked it for more hours, and I believe it softened up the meat. If the pieces were flesh were cut like stew meat pieces, I'm sure it would reduce the soddening time and the cooking time possibly. Nowhere in the scriptures, to my knowledge, do we see the consumption of roasted flesh of beast or of bird over fire being eaten by the righteous, except for the Passover. And then lastly, consumption of blood. Myoglobin is contributing to or the cause of cancer. So the consumption of red meats and all these meats in our age, where kids are eating McDonald's 6 times a week and eating Happy Meals every day, consuming all this myoglobin in their diets, it is a contributor or cause of cancers, childhood cancers, cancers in adults, cancers in youth. You saw the test. It didn't take that much of a gram of that carcinogen in the mice's system to produce cancer. The link of this slide presentation is in the video description below. Please read the scriptures and review the information. I hope you all consider this immediately, and the fear of Yahweh comes upon you, and you act upon this information immediately, making repentance, i.e. action, in a different direction. It is a grave sin to eat the soul with the flesh, to eat the life, the blood, with the flesh. We have all done it. We've done it ignorantly. And may Adonai Yahweh have mercy on us. So, Israel, this is for you. Levites, this is for you. Children of Noah, the whole world, this is for you. The congregation of Yahweh, or the congregation of Yah, Father and Son, of Messiah Yeshua, this is for you, brothers and sisters. Shalom to all of those who have their trust in Messiah Yeshua and are doers of the word, not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. This is how you should do it in your dwellings, and if there was a temple, this is how you would do it there. Believers in Messiah Yeshua, we are the temple of the living Elohim. Don't forget. And it's not what goes into your body that defiles, it's what comes out. So are you going to hear the word of Elohim and do it, or are you not going to do it? Hopefully you receive this with thanksgiving. Hallelujah. We have such a merciful and patient Elohim.
Let not a rich man boast in his riches, or a strong man boast in his strength, or a wise man boast in his wisdom.
But let him that boasts
Boast in that he understands Yahweh and that he knows him. Hallelujah. All praise to the Father and to the Son.